This afternoon at 10:15 this morning, Bills offensive lineman Richie Incognito appears to be done. He tweets, "I'm done." More than a hint at retirement. We'll have more on Incognito's future coming up. Also on NFL Live today, a candid conversation with one of the most intriguing quarterback prospects in this year's draft. Todd McShay, though, will have his grade A mock draft. There he is. He's over there. He's ready. He's excited. And he's right next to Josh Rosen, who will weigh in today on everything from his future in the NFL to why he is the best quarterback in this draft. Hello, everybody. Glad to have you along with us. I'm Wendy Nix with Josina Anderson and Louis Riddick as we inch our way toward the 2018 draft. You will see more of Todd McShay as well as Mel Kiper Jr. Coming up in just a bit. But with all this talk about quarterbacks in the draft, what about first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks who are still on the field? One of those, of course, in fact, chief among them has to be Tom Brady. And here's what Robert Kraft had to say about Brady's contract to The Athletic. He'll be 41 when the season starts. Neither side has an issue with it. If it becomes an issue, we'll deal with it. Kraft on Brady's future. I hope he plays. He's at a different point in his life. He's talked about. It's interesting to see that Tom versus time and see where he's at, to see his kids growing up. But that's something for he and his family to decide what is right for him. Me, personally, I'd like to see him play as long as he can. As for Brady, he said Robert Kraft has been a second father figure to him. But anyway, the NFL is business. We know that. So panic or patience on this Tuesday. Tom Brady plays more than 2 more seasons. Lewis.
More than 2 more seasons.
More than 3 or more.
Yeah, I'm going to say panic. Look, I think it's well within the realm of possibility that he plays 2 seasons. But look, at this point, you cannot say anything other than the fact that it's a year-to-year proposition with him because you don't know. You're in uncharted territory regardless of how well he takes care of himself, which obviously is pretty darn good given how well he looked last year. But to try and project, look, it's hard to project 3 years down the road for a guy who's in his prime, let alone someone who's going to be 41 by the time September rolls around. So, yeah, I would be panicked, so to speak, that they need to have a succession plan without a doubt in place over the next 2 years. They had one. But they don't anymore.
But what had happened?
Exactly. What had happened was.
That's exactly right.
But yeah, I think going any further than that. Look, I mean, you're playing with fire there. They need to make sure they have a plan in place for sure.
Not even Tom Brady can play forever. Although I'd put my money on him if I had to pick one, but yeah. It happens to everybody. Josina, panic or patience?
Yeah, definitely panicked on this because at some point you have to usher in. Woo, yes, get it going. We are both panicked.
Wait, you didn't get the lights.
You didn't get the light. You didn't get the red light special.
Right.
Only for the lady. But we'll work on it for you. Technical problems for you. But no, panic because at some point you have to usher in the new movement. And just from a business standpoint, that is what makes sense. And Belichick has been known for, not having the most, heartfelt sentiments even after a Super Bowl. He'll get rid of you. And,
sure.
and even though Tom Brady is known for taking care of his body, even though he's passed for over 3,500 yards since 2009, and even just last season, 32 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, at some point, Father Time does catch up with you, and you don't want to wait to the last point where he just goes away and then you have this rookie who was just thrown to the wolves.
Yeah,
and that's why Teddy Bruschi said I think he would be surprised if they didn't get a quarterback because it just does feel like it's even time now.
It really is incredible, though, when you think of the numbers that the guy puts up. And it's not just a statistical-driven analysis here. When you watch him play, like we went up there in training camp and watch him move around, and you're going, that guy can't be that old.
Right.
I mean, he looks marvelous. And you really, you would expect for there to be a nice gradual, you would hope there would be some kind of sign that gradually he's starting to deteriorate, but you just don't see that. So really what's going to have to happen is, look, either you're going to be wrong and the guy could play forever, which who knows, maybe he can, or it's just going to fall off a cliff with him, which I have a hard time of seeing too. But you do have to play the odds.
But I think you do, Lewis. And to your point that we haven't really seen that same type of gradual decline that we often do, I do think it could be quick. I think it could be an instantaneous thing.
But with him, it would be so I mean, the drop-off would be so dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd probably spend the whole day talking about it.
Well, I agree, but I mean in terms of an injury or a hit or play that makes
and that's all it takes.
And that's all, for anybody, but especially an older player.
I mean, we all deal with injury, right?
We all deal with injury. Todd McShay, should the Patriots draft a quarterback?
I think they will, and they should at some point. I just don't know. I mean, if you look at the landscape right now, and Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, in whichever order, are all likely to be off the board in the top 12 picks. So if that's the case and the Patriots don't plan on using all of this draft ammunition that they have to move up, which they could. I mean, they clearly could. You're talking about 4 picks in the top 63. So they're in a situation where they could do that to move up. Are you going to do that with Tom Brady as your current quarterback? I don't think that's the play. I think you've got a combination of different ways you could go, but maybe a Mike McGlinchey to replace Nate Solder at 23. At 31, then maybe you're working the defensive side again. Josh Jackson, a cornerback, is a player who could be somewhere in that range towards the bottom of the first round. Then at 43, I think is probably where you start thinking about quarterback, but you could even address the linebacker position with a guy like Darius Leonard who can cover. That's what they need, a cover linebacker. And then at 63, you're probably hoping and wishing at this point, but I'm going to go to my Richmond Spider. Kyle Lauletta seems to be a good fit. Intelligent guy, obviously. He went to University of Richmond, and he has the ability to process and go through progressions quickly, throws the ball accurately, and would be really good in that quarterback room with Tom Brady. So some scenario like this, unless they decide to surprise us and package a lot of picks and go move up for one of the top 4 quarterbacks.
Todd, thank you. And I agree that would be a surprise, but you certainly never know. And already we've seen them do some things that I think don't seem quite so Patriot-like. After months of speculation about his injured shoulder, Andrew Luck finally addressed the media yesterday. This was when the Colts reported for off-season workouts. This was the quarterback yesterday on his progress.
I've not picked up the Duke and started throwing it yet, and I don't want to skip steps. I'm trusting the process that I'm in right now very, very much. I'm trusting myself in this process. When the time is right, I'll pick it up. I'm not a perfect feeling athlete right now, by any means. So there's still a focus on me to make sure that I can feel really, really good and then be unbreakable. I don't want to put myself in a situation where this happens again. There is a timetable, but I'm not going to share it with you guys. I'm very, very confident and very, very optimistic that I am going to be absolutely fine and come back better than I was. I think I'll be a better quarterback, a better teammate, a better person. I'm very confident. One of the things I've learned about myself is I'm quite impatient as a person, and it's gotten me into places, looking back at the rehab, that maybe I shouldn't have been in the first place. And so I don't want to repeat those maybe missteps. I cannot skip steps. I very, very strongly believe in that. Some things just take time, and I've learned that. And when I do get the urge to do something a little silly, I talk to myself, and it's not worth it right now.
It seemed yesterday, after listening to Andrew Luck, that his entire recovery has sort of been a lesson learned. There were some missteps along the way. Perhaps he pushed it too hard. And now he appears to be being a bit more patient. I use that word because panic or patience with Andrew Luck staying healthy, Josina, and perhaps playing all 16 games in 2018.
Panicked because, I'm sorry. Let me rub that in there. Okay. Yes, I would say panic just because there's still so much unknown. The last time he played a game was January 1st, 2017. A lot of time has passed, and even though he was very introspective and reflective about the things that he's learned, talking about that, he wasn't patient enough, feeling like he was skipping steps, seeing how that impacted him regressing and things like that, you still have that period where once you even get back to training camp, if he even comes back at training camp, you have to get through that portion of readjusting, getting your body back to playing at an elite level. All of that is unknown, not to mention the fact, Wendy, that last year we heard Irsay and the quarterback talking about he was coming, and then he didn't come. So we just don't know, and he's still the leader of this franchise. So much depends on him.
I will say this, Lewis, I don't blame Andrew Luck one bit for not sharing his timetable. He tends to be private anyway, but given what happened and given the fact that Irsay did share it and said he's coming back, and then there was disappointment and questions, I wouldn't share it either because you just don't know.
No, and right now, look, we're talking about whether or not we're panicked or patient about him being able to play 16 games. Look, I'm flat out panicked over the fact that we don't even know when he's going to play, period. And I'm not going to take Andrew Luck's word for it that he's going to be healthy for training camp, because clearly this whole rehab process has been mismanaged by somebody, whether it be he himself, who was kind of going off the reservation and doing his own thing, or the fact that there wasn't enough communication between management the medical department, and then what his rehab protocol was supposed to be, and then holding him accountable to that. Look, this whole thing, you shouldn't be talking right now about it shouldn't be a situation where he's going, maybe I pushed it too hard, maybe I didn't listen to myself, I have to have conversations with myself about backing off and all. It's really supposed to be taken out of your hands. This is why you hire the best medical staff money can buy. And ownership and everyone else needs to stay out of it, because you're not an expert. You're not someone who can be sitting there trying to write checks on someone else's toughness, saying, like at one point it was said that, that maybe some of this was in Andrew's head and it wasn't necessarily physical. And all. Don't start saying that. No, don't start saying that kind of stuff about your franchise quarterback, because you know what happens? It's kind of like it's not hard to see why maybe we're at this point now. Because who knows? Maybe the kid was pushing it too hard then. Maybe he heard the chatter. People were saying that it's in his head.
I think it's clear that was the case.
Everybody's kind of messed this thing up right now. So you know what? Everybody should just kind of be quiet.
Yeah, I agree.
Let the medical staff do their job. Andrew, follow what they tell you to do, and don't listen to anybody else, period.
Yeah. Wendy, real quick, I talked to T.Y. Hilton last night. He said, I talk to Andrew all the time. He's a guy that we built up a connection with over the last 6 years, and we told him, no need to rush. We need you in the most important times, and that doesn't even start until week 1. So
no kidding. I mean, now is not the time after all that's happened to push it. This is not, however, having said that, a roster flush with talent outside of its quarterback. The offense has a little with T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle, and Marlon Mack capable of production, but check out this defense. It is just not a defense capable of picking up any slack if Luck misses significant time. And you saw that last year with their 4-12 record. So we've talked about the quarterback. Obviously, when healthy, he's a game changer. But JoJo, let me ask you this. Panic or patience when it comes to the rest of this Colts roster?
It's definitely not anything that I say is notable when we are thinking about the teams that are going to be in the postseason or that we project for the postseason, not to mention that the rest of the division has come up since Andrew Luck has been out. We talked about that yesterday. Yes. I'm sorry. There you go. Panicked on it, you guys, is whether it's be with the Jaguars, whether it be with the Texans. They have a long way to go. So that's good news for Frank Reich in terms of working with this team, starting from the ground up, building it, time by time. But if you're talking about this season, they are way off.
Look, I'm gonna be patient, because I'm gonna take a longer-term approach to this whole thing.
Patient as long as you don't want to win.
That's right. Yeah, but you know what I mean. A lot of the problems that this roster has is not of Chris Ballard, the current GM's doing. It's just not. A lot of the deterioration, really what he's doing is he's dismantling some things while at the same time trying to fuse the roster with talent. He probably will want to trade down and accumulate as many picks as he can. Let's just, you know what? We should have this segment after the draft, or maybe after the preseason, to see what kind of.
Not to worry.
No question about it. When they bring in some players, and then we see how Frank Reich is integrating them. Because I will tell you this, from knowing a little bit about Frank Reich and from talking with Doug Peterson and what Frank is going to bring to the table, then how they integrate these players and what kind of production they get out of these players, which is really the most important part. How are the players utilized also? It all works together. The GMs have to work with the coaches. Coaches need the GMs. So let's just see how this looks in September once Chris is able to do some things in this draft and the rest of this offseason before we push the button.
And how patient do you think Jim Irsay is going to be?
Well, that's a whole different.
Yeah, that's an entirely different show.
But again, I mean, a lot of the mess that they're in right now is because of maybe some of the hirings that he's made in the past.
Well, the
decisions they made.
The problem is part of the mess. You just said it. It is a little bit of a mess, and they're going to have to dig their way out. It won't be overnight, regardless of whether you're panicked or patient. Coming up, free agent safety Eric Reed is on the road visiting with the Bengals. We'll dive into why Reed is not yet employed and why the safety market seems to be moving at a slower pace. And UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen has faced more than his fair share, in my opinion, of criticism heading into this month's draft. But our team's panic or patient about what he has to say next.
Beat of the drums rushing through my skin.